Yo, what's going on, everybody? Makowski here, and welcoming you back to the G1 podcast. Today, we got a very special guest, an OG in the scene, Marcus, Elumnite, Lovejoy. Marcus, welcome.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Joining us as my co-pilot in shotgun, riding shotgun, is my former teammate, my current duo, Eli The Ninja. Eli, what's good?
What's going on, guys? Feeling good today, ready to talk with somebody we've known for a very long time. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, lots of crossover between the three of us. What, maybe about 60 collective years of competitive Halo experience. We damn near senior citizens.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of experience. A lot of Halo titles, for sure.
Yeah, ever since the beginning, right? I mean, I think for myself, I fell off a little bit during 4 and 5. Not my favorite. I know you kind of stuck on with Reach and had some success there. But
and I even had my shot at like Halo 4 and a little bit at the beginning of Halo 5.
And you were still competing at
I was still competing at the beginning of Halo 5 as well. But you know, then I quickly transitioned to like coaching and whatnot. So, but yeah, competitive for a long time.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Well, I thought a great way to start off the podcast today would be to take it back to the very beginning. I love a good origin story, and I want to know a little bit more about yours, Marcus. And I'll rip this one off with, from my POV, I remember us matching back in Halo 2. I think it was the hardcore playlist at the time, and I saw Elumnite.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, oh, it's Elumite on a secret tag or something, because you were fragging out. You look just about as good as Elumite Warrior. So I got to ask, what's the origin of your gamer tag? Did you ever have some of that crossover come up and mention throughout your early days? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some inspiration from it. I'm more into like the moon, like stars and whatnot, and it's kind of like a mixture. It's kind of like an alumni of like, you know, a college, but a little bit of like moonlight, you know, stars and moons and stuff like that. I mean, I felt like I always was pretty talented, you know, and pretty skillful overall, but that's just a little quick, like, you know, background of it for the most part. But
that's how you got the gamer tag.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I always love hearing people's origin stories and kind of how the name relates to the personality and soul almost of that. Yeah. Like your gamer tag almost represents you more than like your name itself.
Yeah.
So,
no, for sure.
I did want to say, like, I keep running into like an Elumnite. Like there's a few others that like, so there's Elumite, there's Elumnite, and there's Elumnite. Like do you know that guy?
No, I don't know him. And there's like an Elumbate, I think.
Yeah,
too.
I've seen that one too.
So there's a few of them, and I know Mick one has like Mick Wren as well.
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot of guys out there. You know, there's a few people that have like verbatim like same gamer tags too, not necessarily just in Halo, but like overall in like other games.
Right.
And whatnot too.
Karma,
Karma
is one.
Ace is everywhere.
Ace is everywhere.
Yeah.
Slasher, stuff like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of common, you know, similarities with a lot of people's gamer tags in the space and whatnot. But I mean, like Halo 1, obviously all of us, you know, probably started, you know, right there, but then like Halo 2 kind of like was like what really got me like addicted and like wanting to like pursue something in terms of like showing off in some capacity that was better than people, you know.
Were you landing with the big old CRTVs and Halo CE like in the neighborhood, or
not really? Like there were LANs and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything significant that I was going to in Halo 1 until there was a church event actually locally, and there was this team called TOD, I think it was Team TOD, and they were like pretty good, and they were going to like the Atlanta 50K, Halo 50K.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first time I ever got like really smoked. and I still did good like in my own way, but as a team we got smoked. Individually, like me and my brother, we would keep up and whatnot. But after that, it was such a shock to me. I was like, man, like, and this is right before Halo 2 was about to come out.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like, as soon as Halo 2 comes out, I'm going to really grind and play this game. And obviously there was a lot of influences that helped me in terms of like inspiration. Like I was watching like your montages, I was watching Eli's montages, and It Was Luck and Shook One, and really trying to visualize what my goal was going to be in terms of where I was going to take this. Trying to be a professional or whatever, and it it really didn't start taking off until like I graduated from high school, because me and my brother's parents, they were not supportive in the terms of like us being able to play video games.
Yeah.
We could only play on the weekends, not on the weekdays. And even on the weekends, we had to read a book. At least we had to read a book.
What?
Like we had to read. We had to do something.
You had to eat your veggies, read a book.
Yeah, we had
and
to
then
do
you
something.
got to play Halo.
Yeah, but in Halo 2, we would go over our friend's house, and we couldn't play all during the weekday. We didn't even have Xbox Live, and we would beat them.
Wow.
We'd be playing better than them, during the weekends and whatnot. And and then I finally got to go to Dallas 07 and kind of start getting first LAN experience, and then Orlando 07 was when I really like elevated to like the semi-pro, I'd say, status.
Yeah.
I made like pro FFA. I remember you were in some of my heats
Yep.
in Orlando, and Boost Mobile did like a 1v1 thing there, and I ended up getting sponsored from Boost Mobile by winning the leaderboard. It was like Little Poison was on there at the time, and I got first. I won like 28 games of 1v1s in a row.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it
That's
was
insane.
tough.
Well, because people could screen watch too, and there was sword, there was new combo
Were you
on
sitting
mid-
side by
You could
side
cheese
or
it.
split
side
screen?
by side.
Oh my God.
Side by side, and got sponsored by Boost Mobile to get flown out to Vegas for Halo 2. Ended up placing like top 16. Like it was like real quick. I started elevating real quick in terms of performance, real quick.
So for you, is that the first time your parents were a little bit more supportive? They saw
I
the
was
sponsor.
graduating high school, so like I was out of high school. You know what I mean? Like they started seeing some sort of stuff happening once I got sponsored, and then it was like slowly but surely they started kind of getting on board.
That's crazy, man. My parallel is the exact same. I was 14, 15 years old. I had just won a tour to Walsh. I ran downstairs screaming, I'm going pro in Halo. I'm going to be a professional Halo player. Parents were like, hell no, you're not. Go get that application turned in at Chick-fil-A. Like, you are not ruining your, like, you're going to go play football, get a scholarship, and be a good kid. They did not enjoy particularly my passion for Halo and my just steadfast desire to make it a career. Eli, did you have similar troubles growing up? And I remember, I think on the last podcast, you said your mom drove you to that first free-for-all, so.
No, I mean, we touched on it the last podcast, but my dad drove me 9 hours to Atlanta, Georgia with a broken arm after a motorcycle accident.
Man.
Just because I told him, and my brother vouched for me too, because my brother was always really good at games. He was better than me at most games. It kind of reminds me of you and your brother, honestly, kind of like the dynamic between us. He just kind of like is less, I don't know, he's more introverted, so he sits back. But he basically was like, look, he's really good. I've seen him beat like some of the best players in the world. Like, you should let him go to this tournament and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And my family, or my dad and my brother were competitive. They played soccer a lot growing up and were pretty good at it. My dad, I guess, said like, well, I guess this is like his soccer, so we'll let him compete. And then like when I got top 8 at like my second tournament ever in Meadowlands and came home with a check, granted it wasn't very much, but my parents started to see like, oh, this is like a real thing, and like he's one of the best at it. So they just, I don't know, they were supportive from then. And then, you know, once you have sponsors and stuff, like you said, like you got the Boost Mobile thing, like once I started getting sponsors and people are paying for my travel, like they don't care, like they're not paying for me to get there, you know. It's like And then MLG, if you were top 16, you're getting the stipend. So
which is what, like $200 at the time, I think I remember.
It actually started out at like $600, but they decreased it
to 4.
Right, yeah, it went down to like 4.
And then it went down to 2 if you weren't top 8 because of the recession in like 09. I remember it got reduced, and that was a big difference for sure.
Yeah.
But
I remember,
was still excited.
I still remember, and maybe I shouldn't be airing this out, but MLG, like the pro, they would have like a pro meeting before every event, and MLG actually sat us down and showed us their profit loss margin.
Damn, they peeled back the curtains for y'all.
Yeah, they pulled back the curtain, and they were like, look, we've been losing money for the past couple of years, and they used it to justify the reduction in stipends, which, like, I mean, we kind of understood, I guess. At least I did. I mean, some players might not have, but they really showed, like, look, this is a difficult business. We're investing a lot. We believe in this. We think it's the future. And, you know, we're investing more money than we're pulling in. And for that reason, we're going to actually have to cut stipends and prize money. And that was, like, kind of jarring for me. I mean, I was, like, 17, 18 sitting in that meeting. And it's really stuck with me over the years. Like, they actually showed us the graph of revenue just going into the red, like several $100,000 in the red. And I don't know, it was pretty cool to see that. And then, it kind of resurfaced, and now we've got HCS, which is, there's more money in Halo than there's ever been. So I think we're jumping ahead. I do want to talk to you about that later. But before this, and you're talking about some of your origins, I actually pulled up your team page to just kind of like refresh my memory of like some of those players. And I noticed that you were teaming with a lot of the FFA guys that we were competing with. Like you were teaming with like Arcanum, Devious.
Yep.
Hunter JJX, I think you teamed with at one point.
I teamed with him kind of like more so in the past like 2 years. You know, like Halo 3, like a lot of online Halo 3, like when we revisited MCC,
the throwback era,
right, of Halo 3. Like most recent, there was a couple times we went back to Halo 3 actually.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's true.
Like there was a few times where Halo 3, like we'd stop playing the main Halo game that everybody was playing, go back to Halo 3. And then, you know what I mean?
It looked like at one point Halo 3 was going to be like our version of Smash. I think it's like Melee, right?
Yeah,
it's just
I would say
here forever.
Yeah, Halo 3 definitely stood the test of time in terms of like how much playability it ended up having, right? Yeah, I mean,
Forge, right? That was the first
Theater,
first theater.
I mean, it had a lot of great things that was integrated into Halo 3. I didn't want to leave Halo 2 when Halo 3 came out because I started getting into form. I got top 16 and fours and champs in Vegas. Yeah. And I was like, man, like
that was 07. 07, yeah.
07. It was me, Primo, Devious, and Hierarch, I think it was.
Yeah.
I wanted to get Arcanum, but Primo convinced me to, try, Sam out.
He's my local. Yeah. Or he was my local in Virginia.
Yeah, and he did well. I just really wish we could have gotten Arcanum back then. But
Jacob's always been good, man.
Yeah.
Smart kid, man. Like he went to UMass or Amherst, one of the top universities. So I always remember because I teamed with him for a little bit, and he always had a big brain.
Yeah, no, he was always raw skill, FFA, good teammate.
Good attitude for the most part.
Yeah.
Earlier days, I feel like he had a bit of a hothead, but he's always a good teammate regardless.
Yeah, no, he was. And then going from Halo 2 to Halo 3, we didn't really have that good of a start. It was like top 24.
Well, and you had the shift from not necessarily fully hit scan in Halo 2. There was some lead in Halo 2, but to a full lead, you need almost like an entire reticule length ahead of the opponent to hit that shot. So the game, like Halo 1 to Halo 2 was a big leap, but I think the biggest of all the leaps in Halos was 2 to 3 for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty big in terms of like the speed of it and just certain mechanics and whatnot. Yep. And not to mention, like, I was finally getting into the scene of, like, interacting with pro players and actually getting into the lobbies and whatnot. And then I'd say Status Quo tried to recruit me after Meadowlands 08 because we played them in a series, and I was wrecking. They were literally, like, Flame Sword and Sly Fox. I don't know if you remember those guys.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course, yeah.
They were literally asking me, like, what am I doing after this tournament, to team with them. And I wanted to, but I was more into like the loyalty aspect of it. So I stuck around with my team. We ended up picking up Silver Sun for San Diego, and we didn't really do that well. And then I ended up going to Status Quo, and then ended up becoming pro with Flame Sword. At the same time, we both signed contracts the same time. With it was me, Flame Sword, Tots, Sly Fox, and Mr. P. He was fully sponsoring us.
Just the best.
Yeah.
We were getting a stipend from him on top of everything being taken care of. We'd fly out to Chicago to the basement land.
Oh my God, that place was legendary.
That was the beginning of all that right there, and then that was the start of like the pro, officially pro, right?
Yeah.
Before we get into some of the stories about the LAN network and the Tots, Pinocchio family, all that, I want to talk about breaking through. And you talked about how going from Halo 1 to 2, you had this like meticulous, well thought out plan. How old were you at the time? Because that's a lot of planning for a young kid. And what did that plan look like for breaking through?
Realistically, timeline wise, I wasn't that young. I was like getting into it seriously. I was 19.
Oh, okay. Shit.
I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first went to my first event, and I was working part time at Red Lobster. I was going to college to become a chef at the time, and balancing those things out. And
Not easy.
yeah, and it was tough because I was falling asleep driving back home
Grinding.
from school because I had been up the night before playing Halo 3 all morning.
Yep.
And I had like lecture classes and whatnot in the morning, and then I had to drive to another campus as well. And I was driving in the rural parts of, you know, Georgia, just outside of Metro Atlanta, and I dozed off on the road.
Oh, no.
You were really falling asleep.
Yeah, I woke up and I was in the other lane just cruising. There was no car coming my
Oh,
way,
my God.
but it scared me to the point to where I was like, I got to find out what I want to do more so. What do I have the passion for? What is going to...
You're spreading yourself so thin.
Yeah. What am I really going to want to put my full effort on? And I was like, man, I really want to do this gaming stuff. So I stopped that. I learned a lot of valuable things in, like, you know, the quest to become a chef and whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then I just kind of went full steam, you know, into competition and whatnot.
Yeah, so much of what you learn in the real world, especially through sports or sometimes these job opportunities, you can apply to esports and gaming. And I think even in some cases, esports could use a little bit more structure. Now, you're coming on board here at G1 as the new GM and Director of Esports Optimization. In your eyes, what does optimization look like from an esports level, and how can we kind of take that next step?
So, like, optimization would be like coming in and just basically using my experience from where I've been, you know, with NV Optic, and kind of seeing how their business model has been run in terms of like the personnel. Like there's like 30, 40 plus staff, right? So there's a lot of systems in play, you know, that I've had enough time to kind of, you know, gain experience in working with different departments and utilizing that experience to kind of bring over to G1 to just fine tune what you guys already have in place and whatnot, and kind of just, you know, bring my expertise in terms of the respect that I've have, you know, elsewhere with players, and, you know, drawing attention and attraction from players to come over here and, you know, potentially want to be involved in programs because they understand that, like, if I'm joining, you know, there's some stuff that they're doing and whatnot, and they might want to have some interest in joining as well. And I'm into the fitness lifestyle.
Yeah, you regularly work out 5 a.m. every day, right?
Yeah. I'm up usually early in the morning. I'd say latest like 7 in the morning, and I typically work out like twice a day. So yeah, that bringing that type of culture and maximizing what you guys already have, because you guys already have that, you know, culture here as well, is really big for a lot of these players to kind of be cognizant of their, you know, their lifestyle overall and whatnot. So yeah, optimizing in all types of ways, whether it be lifestyle, the business function, just, you know, solidifying, you know, what you guys already have.
When you were competing, were you this active in the gym, or was it not until after your career that you got more involved? What does that look like?
No, I wasn't very active in the gym, but I was never really out of shape or anything like that. But the lifestyle habits that I had in terms of diet and drinking energy drinks, not really drinking water as much.
Yeah, just ball soda and that's it.
Yeah, I ran into a health issue where I ended up having a kidney stone, and this was right before Providence, 2011, MLG Providence, and I ended up flying a day after surgery out to Chaser's house in Laguna for a pre-land. It was classic. I was on Active Rush. It was Straight Sick, Sneaky Beaver, and Frosty the Truth.
Yeah. Yep.
And classic was Chig, Straight Sick, Prototype, and Russo at the time.
Wow. I remember Russo. That's a throwback.
Yeah. And I just didn't have a very efficient, healthy lifestyle. Like, I was down to like 115 pounds at the time. And then after that, it was such a scare because it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life, having a kidney stone. And then ever since then, I just fitness, healthy, and I haven't stopped. Literally haven't stopped.
That story to me parallels with the falling asleep at the wheel almost. Like, it sounds to me like you had 2 life-altering moments that really kind of like showed you the light in a way.
Yeah. I unfortunately, I don't really ever want to get into a point to where like I have to deal with a health scare to get me to do the things that I already should be doing.
Yep.
But sometimes it takes that for some people, and it, unfortunately, but fortunately, it was that situation. And I haven't let my foot off the gas ever since 2011.
I feel like that's actually a really common thing for people. It's like you go through life and you have your habits and your things that you do, and like that like some of the things you're doing aren't good for you, like whether it's food or addiction or spending too much time on certain things. But then it's like not until you lose your job or you have a health scare or you lose your girlfriend, whatever it is, that's when you decide to make the change. And I think it's a really common thing, honestly, but it's like people always think, oh, that'll never happen to me. You know what I mean? Or they don't think it'll happen to them, but then when it does happen to them, it's like, okay, this can happen to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, honestly, I try to learn from the mistakes of others. I see like what other people are doing. I'm like, wow, I don't want to end up like, I don't want to hit rock bottom the same way that I saw my best friend do it, for example. And it's like, try to learn from other people. Like things can happen to you. I guess that's the lesson I'm trying to say is like, it's better to get ahead of it and like start these good habits before something goes wrong than wait till something goes wrong, because some things can't be fixed. So
for sure.
I don't know. I just thought it's kind of interesting to hear you say that. I mean, Hunter had some similar things. I mean, your wreck wasn't like you falling asleep or being like negligent. That was the other driver, right?
Yeah, I got T-boned. I don't know how fast they were going. It felt like 50 to 60 because they rolled my truck over, and that's like a ton and a half of like, that's a lot of weight to toss across the sky like I did. But I wouldn't really necessarily say that moment for me was like a wake up call so much as it was just like this like insertion of gratitude for very, very basic little things. Like even just like waking up, once I got like a little bit more like removed from the wreck and kind of was able to process it a little bit better, I just like woke up and just would start my day off with so much gratitude just for like being alive, because I did have a point in my life where I got to see the white light, and that's a real thing. And I guess that's in a kind of like funny weird way. That's why if you ever watch our Ascension docuseries or some of the clips that get posted of me when we're competing, I'm looking extremely emotional. Sometimes I'm even brought to tears by just like the emotions I'm feeling. And I've always been like a pretty emotionally charged guy. I think Eli,
100%.
you would even say that going back to
100%,
when we teamed 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a picture
Always
of us on the main
juiced up.
stage, just like, like, and I think we just won one game. Like, I've always been super charged up emotionally, but yeah, that wreck just like really kind of like squared it to where, everything that feels good feels, I can find like some intricacies in it that just make it even more special to me, because I in some ways got to see what it would look like if it was just all over. So
like for me, the outlet that's been super beneficial for me, not only physically but mentally, is the fitness, and me being able to go into that realm and be real with myself, even with the past things that I've been going through, and it's just really helped me build some sort of a body armor for myself, and an outlet. I'm so crazy about it. Everybody that has been around me the past few years, like they know, like even when I'm at events, I'm up in the morning.
Oh, I see you every time, like early morning on the elevator. You're always like sweaty and coming out like got the lift in.
Yep. Exactly. Like even at events, like I just built it up over years. Like I could be out in London, I was out in Japan working out. It doesn't matter. Like I got to get my workouts in.
I love that phrase that you said, that it's your body armor, because I feel like everybody kind of needs that, right? Like you usually go through some like hard times and it kind of like hardens you.
It does.
And like over time, like life's not easy no matter who you are. Like some people have it worse than others for sure, but like after you like have a certain level of self-confidence, like I've been through X, Y, and Z, I'm strong enough to take on anything. Like you just kind of roll with the punches and you can just keep going and you can achieve great things. So I don't know, I feel like that's an awesome like personality characteristic that like you can find across any realm of high achievers, is like they have some level of body armor, and for you it's working out. I think that's pretty cool.
It's definitely helped me in a lot of ways that I didn't think or know it was going to be able to help me. So I highly recommend, for a lot of guys or anybody, like it's beneficial, not only physically,
Yep.
but mentally. And I do believe like going through tough times, it turns you into a better person. Like I feel like having it too easy is almost bad, because when you do go through a really tough situation, you don't really know how to handle it. But when you've only known how to go through tough situations, it's nothing new to you, right?
Yeah.
It's all right. We've been here before.
Bet.
Let's let's do this. As long as it's something new and not the same thing. You know what I mean?
Because then you're falling back into the old ways, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah.
So circling back, really want to circle back to this one, the LAN network.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the LAN network, if it was around today and it had just started and was on its upswing in today's times, it might be one of the biggest community or homegrown content series or productions that we have in esports.
Yeah,
it was really ahead of its time. I guess the LAN network would invite top 4, top 8 teams to practice for upcoming tournaments, and they'd stream everything. And that is really the key here, because this is I think even Justin TV, pre Twitch. Talk to me a little bit about those early days and what the LAN network meant to you and your development and growth in the scene.
Yeah, so I was on board before the LAN network even became had a name. It was even conceived. It was just a bunch of really good, people, a lot of the top pros. I have a hard drive of videos and pictures of these pro players, and they would see themselves. If I need to get that up.
You need to share that.
Yeah, we need that. I need that. I would love to watch that.
Yeah, because I would go around and do a little bit of filming as well. And
what made you do that at the time? Because send it to Ryan. He'll edit the hell out of that. What made you record at the time? Because this was 08, 09, 10, 11. Like this is even before this is like iPhones were just kind of rolling out and you could record on it. So
I had just a digital camera. And it was decent for that time period, 2008 going into 2009. I felt like I should just capture stuff. I don't know, you know what I mean? It just was weird. I just was doing it. And I didn't get to participate in the fully established part of the LAN network when it was actually when Instinct and
Final Boss
and TD, and they had the brackets TD, and everything like that. That was when I wasn't with Status Quo and I wasn't as active there, but the grassroots of it and the beginnings of it, in Mr. P's, basement before they moved to a different spot.
The LAN network to start was in Mr. P's basement, and then they ended up just buying a house for the LAN network.
Yes, yep. Once they got the other house, I wasn't as involved in that aspect, but definitely the beginnings of it. There was we were setting up some stuff. The View Sonics, Mr. P was like, we got eight View Sonics in his, his
medallion,
yeah. He's like, we got to get you out here landing, what I mean, stuff like that, and
he was really one of the first guys. I mean, obviously he had a lot of money. He loved Halo. His kids both loved Halo.
Yeah,
and he just kind of I don't know. He created this whole new dynamic in the Halo scene. His mark on the Halo scene was huge, right? If it wasn't for Tots and
it was an NFL summer camp almost, where you go and all the top pros go to and go play and practice.
And because it was streamed, it had this Hard Knocks feel. And this is 10 plus years ago. This is so ahead of its time. And
it was like a hyperbolic time chamber for Halo players.
Yep.
You go there to get better, play on good equipment, have a good time.
Yep.
And
do a little outside activities, whatever, goof around, you know. But you were able to, play with the best on LAN and refine your skills and whatnot. And so I remember they had a hard time selling me to join the team when Flamesword and Sly Fox reached out to me, the team before Orlando 07. I was like they were saying we have this kid, he'll fully sponsor the team, and I was like, man, I was fine with paying my own way. I was making money on the side.
You didn't want to sacrifice joining a lesser player for more perks?
Yeah. I wasn't interested because like I was making money off of lessons and boosting people, and I was fully funding myself to events on top of the stipend as well, right? So I was like, why do I want to team with this kid, And then Mr. P himself called me and he, he was
full
like,
press.
He was like, yo, like get on board with this, man, like and blah blah blah. I was like, all right, let's try it.
He was everyone's dad. He was literally everyone's MLG dad. Like that's the kind of, and I never got to participate at the LAN network, but I spent so much time around him at events and seeing how he cared for the community and cared for the players almost like they were his own sons was a really special and unique experience. I'm glad I got to be even like 1% a part of.
Oh yeah.
I will say that Tots is an interesting like case in Halo because like you said, I mean, he didn't start out as like a great player. Like the early days, like 07.
He just had a shot.
Like he had a decent shot, but he wasn't like super smart. But I will say that over time of playing in all these tournaments and like all these lands with Final Boss and Instinct, he actually became a very, very good player by the end of his career.
Around the time he joined Triggers Down and he had SK, I think it was Hysteria, Best Man. Dude, and Tots. That was Tots in final form, and that was Tots in a form where sponsorship or not, he deserved that. I'd say he deserved that roster spot.
He definitely had made a lot of improvements, and I would say like it's hard, in my opinion. You'd have to be actively not trying to make improvements when you're playing around the best. Like that's all you really needed to do. Really play with the best. Against the best consistently, you start getting used to their speed. You start really getting used to the pressure of playing against these guys, how good their shots are, and then game flow, and you start adjusting, and then before you know it, you play against lesser players, right? Even semi-pro players. You're able to make reads and
you can pick them apart.
Much faster.
I think that's one of the best tips you can give to someone who's just completely raw, a total noob, is find your favorite player or the best player, and to start off, just copy pasta everything that they do. Do the best you can to literally duplicate everything that you see, and then over time, with enough play time, comes your own game sense and then your own play style. You can kind of start to insert your own personality into, like, I tried to copy Gandhi in Halo 2 2005. I wanted to learn how to snipe, so I'd watch Gandhi play and I'd see how he set his reticle placement. I realized, like, oh, he's not really moving it around much. It's always centered on where the head's about to be around the corner, and that's how I learned about centering. So it's a great tip for anybody who's looking to just start off completely fresh, is copy your favorite player.
Yeah, I moved my right analog stick too much. It wasn't until recently, until like Halo Infinite, to where I actually, when I actually stopped using my right stick so much.
Yeah,
I realized in Halo Infinite, like, stop using my right stick.
That's it, man. Center it, and then once you have it centered and aligned with center master, center head, you really can aim entirely with the left stick, and it's got less variance, so you're not sliding off.
Yeah, I aimed with my right analog stick historically.
So that's so cool, though. You learn, like, you're figuring this out. Even like you're not going to go back and compete, but like you're still grinding. Like, and I think that's like super respectable. Is that you're still trying to like be the best player you can.
That's how I am in everything. It's always how do I continue to improve no matter what it is that I'm doing. Like, I'm such a visual learner. Like Eli was saying, like, if you can watch somebody else make mistakes, you can save yourself a lot of time by not making those mistakes because you have examples, and that's the benefit of being in today's world, because all these guys have a lot of resources to see things. We didn't have as much resources and things to study. It was all learning with no map of anything, right? Now you have streams and you have things of that sort to kind of study and watch and save yourself a lot of time, right?
It was so like hard to find that gameplay footage. I was a fiend for it, though. Like, I remember one of the most like famous gameplays of all time in Halo was Ogre 1's 41-0.
I knew it, dude. I knew it. I knew you were gonna say
King
that.
of the Hill. And like, I studied that game a lot because it's like, it was kind of a masterclass in positioning, awareness,
playing your life, not getting greedy.
Yeah, he's playing against, mind you, if anyone hasn't seen it, I think it was against Carbon, right?
On Lockout.
It was
Lockout
Carbon, which was one of the other top 3 teams without a doubt at the time.
Yeah, he wasn't playing some matchmaking noobs.
No, and Ogre 1 went 41 kills and 0 deaths in a game of Lockout King of the Hill. And it's like,
it's King, okay, yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, how is it even possible to compete against one of the best teams in the world and not die and get 41 kills? And I studied that gameplay so much. And nowadays it's like you can find, your favorite player. You can just go turn on Lucid's stream and just watch him for a while and figure some things out. I love APG's, what he has as his like stream title is like free lessons.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is.
Free game.
Brad has the most, I'd say, classic style of Halo.
Yeah.
Out of almost anybody
you
else.
see so much Halo 2 and 3 in Brad's gameplay. And honestly, it's a credit to him for having so much success this last year where you started to see some of that era of Halo 2-3 players phase out a little bit. Brad held strong, and I think that's one of the reasons he's so good to this day, because he doesn't rest on his laurels, but he takes all that experience going back 20 years and uses it to this day.
Yeah, it's actually wild. I showed him a picture of me, him, and Ola on main stage 2007. Like Eli was on main stage as well, because he was in our heat as well.
It was a free for all.
Yeah, and Pro FFA.
Oh my God.
He was like, what, 12 at that time?
Yeah.
13.
No, he was about, I'd say 14.
Okay.
Maybe even.
I think he went pro. I think his first top 8 was when he was 13 in Halo 3.
Yeah.
So he was pretty young.
And it was a main stage picture, and it was me in between Ola and APG. And for Brad, like from me working with him earlier this year and last year, he only really plays Halo.
Yeah.
He's a gamer, but he's so focused. He just loves playing Halo.
Yeah.
He really held it down and worked on his craft, and arguably going with the GAs that came into effect, it actually benefited his play style, even more so.
Yeah, it brought it back. Yeah, the playstyle kind of brought the basics back,
Well,
the
it's less
fundamentals.
reliant-
And that's what he's good
his
at.
playstyle's not reliant on sandbox. So the more sandbox you remove, the better he becomes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's really good at playing his life. His BR is insane.
His strafe is incredible
His
too.
strafe, his
He's
long
one of
range.
the hardest people to hit. Whenever I play against him in matchmaking, I'm like, I can't shoot this guy.
Yeah,
Like,
and kill overall. He's really good about playing his life.
Yeah.
Nothing.
shout out to APG.
Yeah,
man.
shout out to APG, because
GOAT.
I don't think people understand how hard it is to be in the game as long as him,
It's
and then
insane.
win a world championship
This late.
and it be his first world championship.
I know.
He's only gotten better over the years.
Yeah.
which is crazy to think about.
That just goes to show you that you can get older, but I'm telling you, if your mind is
getting stronger.
you're getting stronger. Yes, exactly.
This dude's like the curious case of Benjamin Button or some shit. Like,
yeah. Yep.
I think he's a
Yeah.
he's a perfect example of dedication paying off.
Oh, yeah.
He is the embodiment of dedication.
Time
he
in. Yep.
never stopped.
Yeah,
right?
and he sacrificed a lot because he moved to Dallas as well. You know what I mean? And that's scary.
for the internet.
Not only for the internet, but
Just to be closer
To be
to
around
Optic.
closer. Well, it was Envy at the time.
NBA. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you know what I mean? That shows a lot of investment on his part.
You're right. I think everyone forgets that Envy was It was Envy, but because remember, Envy had the skin in the game
Yeah.
early in the game.
And
Optic then came along afterwards, so that was
Yeah.
Envy's team.
And I'll tell you a little story about that, because me and my brother, we were already scheming behind the scenes when there were still little online tournaments for Halo 5 and people were still playing Halo 3 before Infinite came out. And our plan was, I wanted to pick up my brother's team, Eco,
Yeah.
Penguin,
wow.
Stellar, and Renegade.
Yep.
That was our plan. I was like, we were behind the scenes. I'm like, all right, let's do this, and Cloud9 kind of swooped in and offered him
Yeah.
a bag real quick, and then
yeah.
I immediately went to Hastro and was like, look, we got to pick up Lucid, which his name was still saying at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And Pistola and whatnot. I was like, this is our only other
I was
option.
Next
looking
best
at
thing.
them too.
The next best
No,
thing.
quote unquote.
We need to lock them in, and
What did you think? What did you think about Renegade leaving Cloud9 after 2 LAN events, almost building a little mini final boss type of run?
Yeah.
And then he splits. Usually it's, if you're second through last, you're switching teams, but these guys were winning and made a
Yeah.
team change. What did you think about that?
I think it wasn't really warranted, but there were some things in terms of effort that maybe he felt, he didn't see any improvements
Wasn't
on.
reciprocated.
Yeah, and he was with those guys for a long time.
Yeah.
And actually, fun fact, Snipe Down was in the mix for replacing Penguin at the time, at
Wow.
the beginning of Infinite.
Holy shit.
But I think it was a little bit of him he shot himself in the foot, in my opinion. I feel like
I agree.
I feel like they still would have been the best team, almost arguably. It would have still been between Optic and Cloud9 with Renegade on Cloud9. But looking back on it, I don't think it was the best decision he could have made, in my opinion.
I think like hindsight makes it easy to say that also, but like at the time, I think he saw the writing on the wall that like Formal was about to join Optic, and that his number one competition was about to see a major upgrade in terms of like their playstyle. No disrespect to Pistola, obviously, but like Formal just kind of brought a lot of intangibles to that team, and I think part of Renegade's decision was realizing that Optic was going to be super strong, and maybe I can potentially land on another team. I don't know, man. There were so many rumors that like he might go to Sentinels and stuff like that too, and it was like,
which is now a rumor today.
It's probably still rumored, yeah. I mean, but I don't know. It's hard to say like to get in his mind about it and see like understand fully what he was thinking, but perhaps he saw maybe greener grasses elsewhere. I think, I mean, I'm the type of person, I've been around long enough to where I think like stick with what you got, and it's going to probably inevitably get better in a lot of cases. Like look at Sentinels, for example. I mean, those guys literally been together for what,
5, 6,
seven
7
years
Yeah.
now. And like, granted, they kind of underperformed this year, but they still won an event. And
Yeah.
it's like-
They won a major.
Yeah. I just feel like they were dominating. They just won.
They were.
They were winning back-to-back lands. They got second place.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was
They
like
got second place.
first falter. and he
Arguably the
abandoned
worst
ship.
tournament they played at, and they really didn't even sit down and really assess it. Like
It seemed like it was already decided before they stepped onto the main stage. That grand finals had that feel to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like the writing was, like you said, quite literally on the walls.
Yeah. I think he should have maybe given it another chance, but I can't fault a man for deciding he wants to take his destiny in his own hands and make his own decisions.
I think Eli's had great input there. And I think that makes sense to like really find the reasoning for why that really tough decision was reached. It was because, like Eli said, maybe he felt like his team had hit that ceiling. And even if that ceiling was where it was, like you said, Formal going to Optic made that ceiling up here, which is why I think he would have seen the opportunity to make a team change despite having, won a couple events in a row. And
yeah, well,
Plus-
sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but
you're
like,
fine.
if Formal wasn't already on a content side of Optic, and we couldn't just go over and grab a player like that, we would have stayed with Ola.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and after placing second at Anaheim, I got back home and I was like, okay, good. We don't have to make a decision because it was in between Brad and Ola in terms of who was going to be
Man,
the chopping
that's
block.
crazy.
Crazy to think about.
And I was like, I don't want to do this because there was a lot of stress on my side, in regards to that. I got back home, sat at my desk, and I'm thinking, we got second. We don't need to do any team changes. And then I get a call from Tommy.
Psych.
I get a call from Tommy, and then he's telling me, I'm like, oh, crap. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then I knew it was going to be ultimately the best decision.
Yeah, without peeling back the curtains too far, or as much as you'd like, what was the ultimate decision as to why it was Ola instead of APG? Because that's talk about a fork in the road. You guys go with Ola versus APG. I could make the argument that you guys maybe don't even make the grand finals at Worlds. APG was that big of a difference, I'd say. So how did that turn about?
I would say Ola and APG's playstyles weren't too different overall.
I would agree.
And they're
with
both
that.
OG Halo 3
Yeah.
guys. They kind of both had that.
They're really
Grizzly
good at
veterans.
damage game. They're really good at the, that style at the time of play. It was just, I think Brad put a little bit more effort into it at the beginning, and it showed. And Justin, in my opinion, had all the skill set to prove that we could have won a tournament with him. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
But the guys felt like they had given Justin a lot of time because I don't know if a lot of people know, but Trippy and Lucid teamed with
Yeah.
Ola before.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And they just wanted to be preemptive and, make a decision. There was a lot of pressure from Hex onto, maybe Stro and us to entertain Formal and expedite that process. And that was a rare scenario that no matter what the situation was, we got second, and we still decided to make a team change, and we went with that.
And you guys went backwards that next event, got third place.
Yeah.
What was the inner workings of the locker room after stepping backwards after making that leap with a plus player informal?
That was a freak play by Roll 2, and that really was the dagger for sure.
No scope when he was at full
With
camo.
With camo,
sword,
he couldn't even see him.
with sword.
Oh, he had
Yeah.
sword 2 camo.
And sword.
Oh my god.
Yes, and Trippy was coming from elevator. We had a pinch on Snakebite as well. We were literally gonna probably win the game from that play.
Man.
So after that tournament, like literally after we were out, the guys did not stop talking about just the scenario and what they need to work on. I swear until we went to bed that night.
Yeah.
That Sunday, it was figure it out right there,
Yeah.
right then and there. The guys did not stop talking at all, and it was just
I would say that, like, from my perspective on the outside looking in, like, Formal drastically underperformed in, like, the latter parts of that tournament. And it was,
Yeah.
like, almost shocking. Like, he even said it, I think, when I was watching the Optic docu-series about it. He was like, I was overconfident, and I need to just let the game come to me. And he was, like, forcing things he didn't need to force, and he was just playing out of character because he thought he couldn't lose.
yeah.
And I think that it was pretty apparent to me from the outside looking at it. I was like, I still feel like they're the best team if Formal is capable of realizing, like, how he needs to adjust his play style to, like, not be overconfident, give the other team respect. Like, you have to respect your opponent and play accordingly.
He likes to really impose his will. His play style is really alpha everything.
Go
and
listen
whatnot.
to the comms video that HGS just uploaded. Formal's like, these guys fucking suck. They're not shit.
It's like grand finals against Cloud9.
Yeah, grand finals,
like,
and he's
these
talking.
guys are lost.
Well, he's gassing his team. He's
Yeah.
motivating his team. He's leading his troops. Like, I mean, like Matt, like he impressed me a whole bunch, man. Like, I've known Matt for a long time. I think I first met Matt. I was San Diego. No, it was Anaheim, 2009. He was just a young Formal coming up to me, and I was pro at the time.
I remember
and talking to me and whatnot to this guy who's very confident, knows exactly what he wants to do at all times, very decisive.
Yeah, he's
like
always been that way.
His work ethic's like top tier.
It's kind of crazy that he's like on the main stage, like, these guys fucking suck. They're not shit. But like, honestly, like you said, one of the more humble and appreciative guys. I remember in 2011, it was the final montage contest ever hosted, and I was in the grand finals against Formal and Lethal and won. And he came up to me at that next event and just was like, yo, Makowski, like, good shit, dude. I can't believe, like, you took down me and Lethal. Like, that was a dual touch. Like, we had twice the clips, like, editing, and there was a vote count. Like, he recognized everything as to, like, how it was kind of an upset for me, and, like, gave me my flowers. And I'll never, ever forget Formal doing that, because it was so chill in the moment. I think he was just outside smoking a cig after playing a match. Like, he's just like,
sounds like Matt.
yeah. It's just like, hey, yo, Makowski, good shit, dude. Like, that was, like,
I will
really
say-
fun, like, and that'll always stick with me. It'll always stick with me.
I remember when he was like, man, he probably was like 14. This was like Halo Reach had just come out, and I was still like relevant, I guess, as a pro player at that time. And he's like messaging me and my teammates, challenging us to 1v1s on Sanctuary and Halo Reach, and like would not back down. Like, he was like, I really want to play 1v1 against you. Like, he was so adamant.
Yeah.
And I ended up beating him in the 1v1, and he's like complaining the whole time. I think I had host or whatever, so host is always a big deal online. But like, I could just see like the fire in him even back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
He was
just,
hungry and humble, which is like kind of a deadly combination.
for sure.
Yeah.
You just stay that way for 10 years and you win
Yeah.
a world championship. So
Yeah.
APG, I think in that same light, it was similar in that sense. Like, always stayed hungry and humble,
I would
despite
say-
being 20 years deep.
I would say in his earlier years, he was kind of, I don't know. I wasn't on the best of terms with
I
him.
wouldn't say-
APG?
I don't
Yeah.
Oh, he was talking. No, he was a total
trash
shitter,
talk.
mad trash talk. Like, he wanted to get
No,
in
I
your head
definitely
and
did not
make it
get
feel
along with
personal.
him.
Yeah,
in
Brad.
08.
Brad nowadays, he's very humble. He's well articulated. He's he likes to be a little flamboyant at times in terms of like, you know, he's
That's his personality though. Let him rock.
Yeah, let him rock. You know what I mean? He deserves everything, all the bit of success he's had, you know, and more. Hopefully in the future for him. Nothing but love for those guys. Obviously, you know, yeah, he's great.
Awesome. I mean, I think we've talked a lot about Optic and kind of your experience there. Yep. Obviously, the players. How do you feel like transitioning from a team that's like, obviously they just won the world championship, and now you're coming here and it's kind of like you're helping build something new with a smaller org. Obviously, we're not Optic.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of a new thing, and we've got right now the only player announced, Boo Boo Dubu, who obviously we all believe in.
Yeah.
But like, how do you see like your journey at G1 kind of going from here?
Yeah, so first thing, I've worked with Boo Boo Dubu 2 different times.
You were his coach, right?
I was a coach.
Yeah.
I was his coach on Denial in the beginning of Halo 5, and then he came on board to Envy with my brother as the coach.
Wow.
So it was Saiyan, Boo Boo Dubu, Trippy, and Ola at the time.
What a squad.
Man.
Yeah.
Can we run that back?
Yeah, yeah, and so me and Jesse have a long history, and you know we've had, you know, a lot of success. You know, making the transition coming from Optic Envy to G1 is like, I'd say it's like a challenge. It's like a new challenge for me. It's trying to you know, take what I already know in terms of my experience and applying it, and actually being in a position to where I can kind of dictate certain things and have a lot of creativity, like say, and have a bit more impact. And, you know, obviously you're already seeing right now, have more of a voice and kind of have a platform to kind of share a little bit of like my history and my experience and my background overall, right? So I see it as a new challenge, a new quest, a new main quest for me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to actually, you know, be able to have a large impact for sure.
Yeah, I would say that like coaches and general managers in esports, I feel like we generally don't get as much like limelight, or like everyone's always about the players, which, you know, is a good thing. But I think a lot of the fans do want to know a little bit more about the people behind the scenes, like the coach and the GM. So yeah, we definitely.
I think it's a massive part of why we had so many new fans last year, is because myself and even Eli, like we made ourselves pretty vulnerable. Like we put ourselves out there. We let our opinions know. Like people knew at events that we really cared about this shit. Like we were living and dying by every shot of the battle rifle.
Yeah, we put it all out there.
And that resonates with the community. Like I feel like you can never expect anyone to care more than you about something that you have like an ownership or some kind of like stake in. But when they see how much it matters to you, they can't help but at least like get a little close to it, you know?
Yeah. I got to the point to where I actually got really comfortable being behind the scenes and not necessarily being in front of the cameras and whatnot. Like if it was ever a situation where I did need to, I was fine with that. But I really enjoyed the process I really learned how to get enjoyment off of seeing others succeed and facilitating that succession.
I'm in the same boat.
I like to be that guy who is in the shadows, just like smiling, looking at what I helped facilitate that success, and you know, and whatnot. That's
a unique form of like self-fulfillment, I guess you could say.
Yeah. No, I really liked being behind the scenes a lot.
It's kind of like a parent like watching their kid like
well, I think it's really like our roles behind the scenes are really interesting because we were once on the sticks, on the main stage, right? So like we have this perspective that nobody else can come into esports and have because we've lived it, and not only lived it, but we've been doing it now for 20 plus years. So there's just so much tremendous value in that. And for beyond just value, there's a narrative, there's a story, there's a why, a purpose to it when you've been doing something for that long. And that's just something I respect so much about you two, is just 20 years deep.
Yeah, and it was crazy because there was a stint where I wasn't involved in Halo, so I
think that was the case for everybody, though, right? Like Halo 4, Halo 5. Like I know for me personally, the MCC launch night. Oh my God, sitting waiting for a tour to Walsh to load up with Walshy. We had coordinated everything. We were good to go. I remember it was my last ever GameStop midnight release because of the awful experience that came afterwards, which was just sitting,
that was the last
waiting for the damn. We couldn't even join a lobby together, and I waited till 6 a.m. before I said, "Screw this shit. I don't trust and I don't feel the same. I know people have their thoughts about 343. I feel a lot better than I did then, but at that time I said 343 doesn't know what they're doing. I think Bungie does. So I followed the developer of Halo instead of Halo itself. So I went on to start creating content and even competing in some ways in Destiny. So that was kind of an interesting tangent to my career. But just to your point, I think a lot of people stepped away from Halo for a little bit, just for whether it was personal reasons or just cause.
Well, it wasn't as much that I wanted to. I transitioned to managing Call of Duty more so than anything within Envy, and that was a nice change of pace because it allowed me to branch off and develop a base and relationships with a lot of Call of Duty pros and reestablish myself with MLG because MLG was still with Call of Duty, and so I was able to come back into that realm, build up a whole bunch of network and whatnot with Call of Duty and build a lot of valuable experience in that realm. So Call of Duty was a very different culture from Halo. It was it was more buddy.
It was hype beast too.
Everybody knew everything because everybody told everybody everything. And it was always about, let's link up, let's hang out. Whereas Halo was more so if you weren't with your team,
it's kind of like cliques.
Like that. Yeah, but COD, it was like, let's go to the gym together.
COD, you had an image to uphold if you wanted to compete professionally. And I remember back in 2017-18, I was brought on by Optic at the time to be the director of first-person shooters. I ran the GG Esports Academy, which was supposed to be like this funnel system to take up-and-coming talent and help them become pro players. And I'll never forget, even when I was scouting out for certain teams, I remember like one guy was like, "Oh yeah, that guy doesn't like own a pair of Yeezys or some shit. I'd never team with them."
That was the starter kit for COD.
That was did not. I swear to God, in 17-18, if you did not wear Yeezys,
you needed Yeezys.
You weren't getting on squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is why I never got into COD. I can't keep up with the Yeezys, bro.
It was pop culture. It was pop culture. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was designer. It was.
It's just not me, bro.
That type of stuff. Like Call of Duty players are making good money.
Yeah.
And it just, they wanted to show it off a little bit and whatnot. So it kind of influenced me a little bit because I was hanging out with these guys. I started picking up their lingo and you know what I mean? And it just, it was dope.
It's definitely a cool experience. I will say, I feel like us three could probably talk for like 10 hours about this stuff and never run out of things to talk about. But I will say for me personally, I'm really excited to have you on board. I think you and I have a lot of similar experiences. Obviously, going back, we've some of the oldest guys in the scene at this point that have been around this long. So definitely happy to have you on board. This is super exciting. Obviously, this probably won't be the last podcast we have you on. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Did you want to say anything else before we wrap things up?
I mean, I definitely want to do more of these. There's still a whole bunch of stuff that I know I want to talk about in the future. Like I know a lot of people want to know like certain roster stuff that would have happened, that could have happened, whether that be people in Halo or COD and whatnot. And there's a lot of stuff that I've wanted to definitely talk about that I wasn't able to years ago because it was so fresh and whatnot. And but definitely looking forward to being able to kind of express myself and tell these stories and just overall be more active visibly, I'd say, not so much behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, the stage is set for an unbelievable run in 2023, and I think the stage is set, like you said, to maybe jump back on the podcast right before Charlotte. It might be a good time. We'll have the roster fully identified, and we can all go through and kind of talk about the behind the scenes. And we're in the nitty gritty right now with contract negotiations and who we're trying to build around. It's quite intense. So I think next time, and here in maybe a couple weeks, about a month or so, be a good time to revisit and have you back on.
And really get into the mindset of how we put together and the process of this roster for Halo specifically. For sure.
Yeah, you've been here for 3 days and it's already it's already been a process. It's already have stories, but we'll save that for a later date. For now, I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys subscribe, ring the bell for more G1 podcasts, and let us know who you'd like to see on the next episode. For myself, Elumnite, Eli, thank you guys so much for tuning in.